That's James's beautiful waffle for today. It's a gingerbread waffle, and I put some strawberries and mandarin slices on it. And it's from this gingerbread cookie mix that I got. So I just didn't want to turn on the oven and make cookies. So in the summer you can plug in your waffle iron outside. You don't have to heat up the house at all. And you can make stuff like that. And James is going to talk about This Is Not a Movie a bit. And he's also going to talk about the occupation of the American mind.
The so-called occupation of the American mind.
And I'm just going to sit and listen.
Well, you got nothing to...
Nope, I'm just going to listen to you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so, yeah, occupation of the American mind. Here's a book, The Clash of Fundamentalisms by Tariq Ali. So he had something to do with one of these politically correct movies, as I recall. I was looking at the fine print at the end of one of the movies, and Tariq Ali's name crept in there. They don't have his middle name. Maybe he doesn't have a middle name, because usually a middle's name. Oh, narrated by Roger Waters.
You hadn't noticed that, eh?
No. Anti-Semite. This wall must come down, like the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall was meant to keep people from escaping. The wall in Israel is meant to keep terrorists from targeting old folks, young folks, the crippled, and of course the soon-to-be crippled Roger Waters. You slime. I think he's still saying that Russia has not just a right, but every right to the Ukraine. You useless commie. Okay, so here is a guy. I don't know how he's useless one way or another. Either he's a commie, or this is Tariq Ali. He's a commie, or else a useless idiot. Now, back in the day, Lenin called Sputniks fellow travelers. Sputnik actually means fellow traveler in Russian. It's also the first thing into space, aside from Lenin's head, which was way off somewhere in the ether. The same thing with Stalin's and Trotsky's, so on and so forth. At any rate, Tariq Ali is a writer and filmmaker. He has written over a dozen books on world history, as imagined or reimagined by Tariq Ali, and politics, 5 novels and scripts for both stage and screen, and I suspect those have been produced. Because everyone knows he's marginalized. Check his name out. He is an editor of the New Left Review, and what did I put? Old Left Review, and lives in London. Settler colonialist, you slime. When you are at the very least an apologist for commieldom, and you're a settler colonialist, you're an imperialist too, you slime, Tariq Ali. Okay, so here we've got, here he thinks he's being really sharp, and it's kind of funny. You see Bush with a fundamentalist beard, and I don't know if you saw this here, Osama bin. So here's, he thinks it's really, he's photoshopped George Bush looking like some sort of a mullah or something like that, the big beard and some sort of head covering. Oh, and on the back, Osama bin Laden. Of course it's small, because when you read this, Osama bin Laden, with a presidential seal up on the presidential podium, to kind of channel Paul Simon here. What is that song? Loves Me Like a Rock. Get the presidential seal. I'm up on the presidential podium. My mama loves me. I wonder if Osama's mom really loved him. I don't think his dad did because he cut him loose. Osama was, his mom was divorced by his dad, I think. And she was one of several wives. So maybe a lesser wife. Anyway, there he is. There's Osama. And so on and so forth. So you'll notice how small this picture of Osama is and how big this picture of George Bush Jr. is, and the clash of fundamentalisms. But the one that bothers him is, he's kind of okay with terrorism, Tariq Ali is, because he's talked, I think he was saying, with Osama bin Laden, and he portrays him as kind of being aristocratic and, like composed and all this sort of stuff. And he says he carefully targeted his targets. I think that's the term. I think he said carefully, but definitely targeted. And he targets civilians. Folks who target civilians, target them, are like man-eating tigers. They find out that they tend to be a little bit older and weaker. They're starting to lose their teeth, and they can't take out a regular prey, so they go after humans, who basically, when it comes to dealing with wildlife, are pretty defenseless if they don't have a gun or some sort of a weapon in hand, or if they're not in a group.
And well, most are pretty defenseless.
Human beings?
Because, and here I am talking and you're
go
supposed
ahead.
to be doing...
No.
No, I was just, it reminded me
This is supposed to be a real conversation, not a CBC type of conversation. Huh?
It reminds me of, what you said reminded me of something I'd heard about if you're not, like a lot of women, they might get scared and put a knife under their pillow or something like that at night. And I'd heard that if you're not trained to use that knife, if you're not willing to actually use it, or women like in the States, they get scared and they go out and buy a gun to defend themselves, they're not going to end up using that gun because they're not the kind of person that could actually kill somebody. So it's no good to them to have that, because they're just going to end up perhaps giving somebody else the weapon that's right there.
Yeah, so
because they're not going to use it.
You mentioned training, and that's a good word. So one of the things apparently that involves training the Marines, the Army, whatever, is not just the technique of killing, but the motivation to kill. People, we've got this idea that people are killers, stone cold killers, but they're not. The average
Most
person
aren't.
just they might. It might involve their life,
and they still
can't
won't do it. Yeah, exactly.
So that's one thing, just the drive to kill. The other thing is expertise. Like a gun, it's hard to. Well, I've read, and it's in a book.
That's not a bad thing, as far as I'm concerned. To be a passive person who won't kill somebody, that's a good thing. That's the kind of people you want in a civilized society. That's the sign of civilization.
It's one of the
is
major
people
ones.
who won't kill, who don't want to. They have no ability even to do it.
And it really is part of civilization in the sense of living in cities. Steven Pinker, I'm going to mention him, my brother. I was mentioning Steven Pinker in one of his more recent books. Originally, he was a devotee of Noam Chomsky, and he's given that up. And this is serious about Chomsky. I know one linguist, an academic, I'm not going to say who it is. I don't want to get him or her in trouble. But was saying that for up until recently, last 5 or 10 years, and that would be, I don't know when the stuff became, it's over a generation. If you went against Chomsky's view of linguistics, You are Gonzo Rapunzel from Academe, Noam Chomsky. And basically, like if you're an academe and you go against Chomsky's ideas about politics and sociology and stuff like that, you're running the risk of being Gonzo Rapunzel, of getting witch hunted. So Steven Pinker used to follow the Chomsky kind of thing, and now he's strayed. And I don't know how far he strayed left wing. He's strayed away from it, if he ever was left wing. Now he's saying things like even taken the Cold War, World War I, World War II into consideration, the world has far fewer deaths per capita than it did in the past, and it actually has gotten better over the years. So in Renaissance times, studs were walking around with cod pieces on and with some sort of problems between their ears, and with swords on their hips. And you didn't give anyone any lip, or that sword would come off the hip, and you'd have to defend your right to, or lack of right to say something. There are certain subcultures in the United States where people are packing heat, and it doesn't work out well for them. They've got a very high murder rate. And it's not just Southerners. Actually, Southerners, I don't know if Southern whiteys, I don't know if they have that high of a murder rate, even though they're lugging around guns and stuff like that. You should be able to figure out what subculture I'm thinking of. Well, there's a couple of them. People are hanging around in groups, generally called gangs, and are packing heat, and they just don't seem to be terribly hesitant about applying that heat, shall we say. So I mentioned this to my brother. Over the phone. What he says is contested. What sort of argument is that? It's a logical fallacy.
Is that Noam Chomsky?
No, Pinker.
Oh,
Pinker was saying things have gotten less and less violent.
Sorry, I lost the train.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I'm not presenting it in a, I don't have it written down. It's not a speech that I've memorized or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so it's somewhat discursive, even desultory. How's that?
Yeah.
At any rate, desultory just means jumping around from spot to spot. And that's not much of an argument to say something is contentious. I don't care if something's contentious. Back in his day, what Galileo was saying was contentious, and it almost cost him his life. It cost him his freedom for a substantial period of time. Giordano Bruno, an early contemporary of Galileo Galilei, he went to the stake. He was killed by the Catholic Church, the powers that be. It's contentious. He kind of had this idea that we lived in a collection of universes. We might see them as galaxies or stuff like that. But he didn't recant. Galileo did. But what they said was contentious. What Darwin said was contentious. And some of what he had to say, the survival of the fittest as a driver of new creation should go the way of the dinosaur. It's mutation that does that. The survival of the fittest just limits the population. People who think the survival of the fittest drives new creation, as it were, are invoking the negative to develop the positive. It's like subtraction, and somehow or another you subtract 2 from 3 and you end up with 4. You subtract 2 from 3, or 5 I should say, and you subtract 2 from 3, you get 1. That's what survival of the fittest does. It limits things. It doesn't expand things. But Darwin was right.
You could have left 4. It doesn't
I
matter.
could have left 4, but it doesn't. Well, it's more like they're saying it's in its effects. It's 2 plus 3.
You were wanting to say it's like additive.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but
doesn't
4
matter.
it could be 3.5.
It doesn't
could
matter.
be, yeah, exactly. At any rate, just because something's contentious doesn't make it untrue. No, that's a logical fallacy, and I don't know if that's ever been. It has to have been somewhere along the line by some sort of logician dealing with informal logic. Should have been identified. What I suspect has happened is there's been a certain, well, it's survival of the fittest, a negative sort of thing. Folks who are used to living extensively, let's say the Vikings, they just kill each other up when they get, or at least the more vicious and violent of the group, tend to, when they're crammed into cities, tend to kill each other up. So much the better. And you look at the descendants of the Vikings now, they can live in cities, and they're some of the most civilized people in the world. I'm talking about people in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Iceland. And some of their descendants have ended up in the New World. Maybe some other places as well. That's how the process theoretically works. So that is civilization having to do with civics, or having to do with just getting into cities. And I don't know what the Latin is, civium or something like that. I think it meant just a city. Okay? That's the root of civilization. And generally when I talk about civilization, I don't care what other people care terribly much what other people say. It's just living in cities.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that way.
What do you mean?
Like nowadays, somebody could be on a farm and they could access a lot of information. So now it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to be that way, exactly right. The technology is kind of extended city values, of course, civilization into the countryside in the much of the world. So Tariq Ali, so you get to the end of the book, he's supposed to be balancing these off, these fundamentalists. But you know, the real danger for him, and he says it, you know, like it's just a tempest in a teapot for him. They worry about terrorism. Never mind that they were trying to get hold, Al-Qaeda was trying to get hold of the Islamic bomb. Would they use it? They definitely use it as a means of pressure. And you just don't know how they'd use it. Same sort of thing. Same sort of thing with Iran. You'll get these folks in Iran, and this is before the modern era. Get that straight. This has nothing to do with colonialism and imperialism, at least Western colonialism and Western imperialism. It has everything to do with Islamic colonialism and Islamic imperialism. They were saying this in the medieval era, when they were stomping the whole world, stomping into India, stomping into the western part of China, stomping into the Philippines, stomping into Indonesia, stomping into Africa, stomping, yes, into Europe, stomping into Russia, Western Europe, Russia, especially, and Southeastern Europe, especially into Spain, when we're talking about Western Europe. What were they saying? And they're saying it now. I'm talking about Muslim fundamentalists. What are they saying? Surrender. Because we love death as much as you love life. Now, a smart person, well, I'm not talking in the West, I'm talking about in the rest, India, China, whatever, will be saying, smart but not necessarily very nice person, will be saying, you love death and we love life. In one fell swoop, we can give you what you love and what we love at the same time. So my advice to Muslims is don't go yippity-yappeting, flapping your gums, saying that. What you dudes, you fundamentalists at least, have been saying for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Don't go saying that nowadays. Because way back when, you, being horse nomads, or at least descended from horse nomads, and had lots of mobility and stuff, you don't have the whip hand now, at least until you get nuclear weapons. You don't go talking that way, because there will be some folks, not me, but there will be some folks who'll be saying, oh yeah, you'll get the death that you love, and we'll preserve the life that we love. Don't go talking that way. That's stupid. Now you dumb gluteus maximus folks are going around saying, oh, literally, here's one professor, who cares if Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein has nuclear weapons. The Americans have it, so he has a right. Everyone has a right to say what? Oh, what I said was, what makes a difference is, with the United States, there's something like a democracy, something like controlling the people who have access to that weapon. Who would be controlling Saddam Hussein? Well, he couldn't even control himself. I can guarantee you, when he was in power, there ain't no one else controlling him. It was just whether or not he could exercise self-control. That's the issue. Now in Iran, if they get nuclear weapons, and you see with South Korea, they've got the hydrogen bomb now, and the means to deliver it to pretty well all of the United States. I don't know how accurately. Hydrogen bomb doesn't have to be terribly accurate. If Iran gets it, North Korea can be restrained by just the threat of getting totally wiped out. How about Iran? They're going around, I can assure you, saying and believing that they love death as much as everyone else, not just people in the West. Everyone else loves life. And so they start a nuclear war that wipes the world out. They'll be going, wow, we're going to paradise or heaven or whatever they call it. Parties. And the rest of the world's going to hell. That's kind of what they desire. At least that's what they say. I think really that's what they believe. So, Obama, you idiot. You were going around, pussyfooting around with the Iranians. We'll take sanctions off so long as you stop developing nuclear weapons. And the Iranians are going, yeah, we'll stop. Had our fingers crossed. Not even behind their backs. Obama, you stupid idiot. Now understand, Obama was better than any Republican president in my lifetime. That goes back to Eisenhower, with the possible exception of George Bush, not Jr., but Senior. Obama, when it came to foreign policy, was a real dork. At any rate, I had even forgotten I'd read this. Oh, that's why I haven't finished it up.
You're in the appendices.
Yeah, holy smokes.
No, it looks like you have notes through it.
Oh yeah, I'm just looking. This is back when I only put checkmarked one side of the page.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't checkmark this side of the page. Yeah. So I'm trying to be honest with you folks here. You know what I'm saying? I wish it were reciprocal, but so many of you nifty shifty lefties are not intellectually honest. You're intellectually dishonest. All one half of you that's watching here now, I trust anyone who's willing to put up with something that isn't an echo effect wouldn't.
So it looks like you didn't like the book.
Oh, it's awful. It's terrible. You know, this guy's marginalized. He gets published. He gets presumably plays and screen plays produced. He's get 5 novels. He's an editor of the New Left Review, and he lives in London as a settler colonialist, borderline imperialist. I don't know what sort of imperialism he's. I suspect he's. From what he was yipping and yapping, he's a Trotskyite. Trotskyist is the technical term, the Russian term.
So you have about 3 minutes to...
3 minutes to
wrap
this.
that up.
Well, I'm not wrapping this up yet. I'm going to go over it a little bit and give you some of the gory details. Oh, America's World. Yeah. There's no Muslim world. Surfing. G dropped off. Hunting. I guess that's Alaska. Exploiting. Central America. You see how small the rest of the world is. Fishing. Fighting down here and stuff like that. America's world. Is there anything Muslim world? No. You see, it's not the clash of fundamentalism. What this really is a clash of fundamentalism. Here's a fundamentalist right here. Trotskyist, Marxist, anarchist maybe, and Bush baby. This guy should be dressed up in ironically, in the suit, the business suit and all that sort of stuff. So that's the real clash of fundamentalism. Get that straight, okay? You listening, Tariq Ali? You useless settler colonialist, imperialist too. So that's what it's about. You know, newsflash, idiot. Marxism is on the dustbin of history, and you're a maggot crawling around in it, and you're strutting around pretending as though you've got some sort of solution for the world. You stupid maggot head. Okay, so we'll be dealing in the near future with. This is not a movie. The occupation of the American mind. I've touched on those. The present age, Søren Kierkegaard, probably pronounced the R incorrectly, but there we go. Josiah Royce, the spirit of modern philosophy, little pun on spirit. This guy was an idealist, and so he's dealing with spirit. And then I've been threatening or promising to deal with this one, 1972, the series that changed hockey forever and rocked the commie world. Tune in.
Well, you have a minute. Is that all you want?
I still have a minute.
You do?
Okay, so yeah, a minute or less. There. So we'll be talking about. You know, there was a lot of joviality when Paul Henderson said when he scored the winning goal in that series in '72. Now, when I scored that goal, I knew what democracy was about, and people go, "Oh, yeah." One of the reasons why Canada won that series is because of democracy. Tune in, you stupid chimps. All 1.5 of you.